What's up, fungal associates? Welcome to Completely Arbortrary. It's the podcast about trees and other related topics. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Alex Crowson. And of course, as always, co-host extraordinaire, Casey
Thank you.
Clapp.
Everyone, stop the applause. I don't need the applause. Not today.
Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. I meant to hit the crickets button.
Yeah, well, thanks, Alex. I really appreciate your button pressing abilities.
Hi, Case.
Hi, Alex. We are from afar today.
Yes, we're from afar.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, Casey.
I blame myself.
It's not that. Well, I do too, but in a gentle way. Like it's nothing really bad. But I do blame you because you're sick.
Yes, I am. They appreciate it. I appreciate the gentle blame. It's like, here's this giant weight. I'm just going to lay it on top of you slowly.
Yeah, like a bed of nails.
Exactly. So yes, you're right
hurt.
though. I'm sick. I've been sick like an annoying way because it's just enough to be like, ugh, but not enough to be like, I'm in bed. I am completely roasted. I can't do anything. It's just been like so lame.
Yeah, I completely get you. That is the worst way to be sick is when you don't feel terrible, but you feel terrible enough for it to get in the way of getting things done.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And nobody likes to do this from afar. We like to be in person so I can smell your musk.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. But
it's actually cucumber Dove body spray.
Oh, all right. That's really something. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I have one minor kind of exciting thing to share.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Go for it.
It's not related to the podcast, though. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So you know me. I'm a bit of an indoor boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
My indoor habits kind of got the best of me over the last couple of years.
Oh, no.
And I got some news from a doctor that I did not like. you know this news.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start exercising.
Yes.
It's not really my scene, but if I can find a way to make it work for me,
It's not really.
I'll be so happy.
I
Yeah.
love that. Hi, here's food. It's like, ooh, just it's not my thing. I don't really like it.
I understand what you're saying. So about a month ago, I was like, I'm gonna put my stationary bike under my standing desk, and I'm gonna play video games while I exercise.
Yeah.
And I am to this. I'm a month in. I've been doing it either every day or every other day.
That's
I'm feeling
so
quite
good.
good about myself.
So you're playing video games while walking, or I guess it's an exercise bike, so you're more
biking.
riding.
Yeah.
That's
I've been
fabulous.
questing in World of Warcraft for an hour every time I do it.
That is such a clever way to do it. Like hey, you want a game right now? You better get your sneakers on because you got to jog while
That's
you are
right.
doing your campaigning.
That's what VR's all about, Case.
Yeah, I saw my friend Colleen doing VR the other day. I don't know what she was doing. She looked like she was punching things. And my other friend Ben, her husband, was right there filming. And I swear I was like, she's going to punch his computer. Because she turned around and was just punching randomly. And then I was like, she's going to punch that computer. I can see it right there. And then she stopped. And it was hilarious.
Yeah, we're going to have to VR proof our homes one day. Like people toddler proof their homes, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anyway, that's my little fun news, Case.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really happy. So you're a month in. Do you feel good? Do you feel like you've made progress on either of your endeavors here, either in the VR world?
Yeah, I'm as Paul F. Tompkins said. I'm not trying to be in a Marvel movie. I'm just trying to live a little longer.
I'm just trying to live a little longer. All right. Yeah. You know what? That does put it in perspective.
But yes, I do feel pretty. I feel fine. I feel more accomplished than anything. I don't feel like a million times healthier.
Yeah.
But I do feel like this is a sustainable change that I'm proud of and I'm happy about.
Well done. We're all proud of you too.
Thank you, Casey. And I'm proud of us collectively because today we are talking about a tree. Wow, I'm so proud.
Yeah. Honestly, it's worth being proud about, I think.
Casey, today, wow, 2 hyphenated trees in a row.
Yeah. Wow. Good point.
what has become of this podcast?
Honestly, it's going downhill fast.
Soon it's going to have to be a pod-cast.
Well, I mean, podcast is already written as one word, so actually that does the same thing.
That's true, Casey. Well, today we're talking Golden-Larch.
Sorry, every clever idea. I'm like, well,
that doesn't make logical sense. Pseudolarix amabilis?
Yes. I usually say amabilis.
Amabilis.
Yes, which means, I believe, like gorgeous or beautiful or lovely in a very literal sense. So, like amicable,
sure.
that kind of thing. Means my love in French. That is, means love. So, amabilis means lovely.
Casey, we got to take a quick break, but when we get back, we're going to talk Golden-Larch, this forgotten tree. Right after the break, we'll be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back.
Did we hit everything? Yeah.
Casey. Completely Arbortrary. I don't even have the bandwidth to explain what just happened, but it was very funny.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Thanks, Alex.
Today we're talking the Golden-Larch, Golden-Larch, Pseudolarix amabilis. Can I just say one thing?
You may, Alex. I was about to say something, but I thought to myself, I think Alex needs to say something.
It's very important. Thank you for recognizing this. It's this. Amabilis. Boop-boo-doo-doo-doo. Amabilis. Boop-boo-doo-boop. That's all. Thanks.
That's all you wanted to say?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, revoked. I take it back.
It's my important contribution to this episode.
All right. I like that you're like, okay, here's my important contribution. And it's almost like, well, we can't get rid of that. He gets an episode. Damn it.
I found a loophole.
Well, yes, that was, I think, a very important addition to our entire canon of the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, in fact.
Oh, it's really my pleasure.
It's really my pleasure, truly.
Well, Casey.
Yes, Alex. You got this one right. Yeah, what do we got?
Let's imagine, as we do every episode, that you and I are taking a little walk. Are we in China, Case?
Yes, we are in China.
Can we be in Sichuan?
Yes, we can be in Sichuan.
I appreciate their regional cuisine. And we come across some golden larches. Casey, let's ID this tree. I have a quick thing to say about larches. This is kind of a surprise to me.
Ooh, like you're surprising yourself right now?
I think so. Because
okay, what's going on?
And I hope this doesn't sound racist, but when I look at a tree, I feel like I can tell what continent it's from. Does that make sense?
Really? I don't think that's racist because I don't think there's. I don't think that actually quite gets there.
I was, of course, kidding.
Okay, just making sure.
It sounds like something that someone would say about humans, you know?
You walk up to a tree and just microaggress them.
I know where you come from.
Yeah, now where you come from. It's like, wait. I'm from right here. No, you're not.
But this to me doesn't strike me as an Asian continent tree for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now I wonder why. I wonder what you're visually kind of picking up in that regard.
I think it's the needles, Casey, and we'll of course get to them. But tell us about this tree, Case.
All right. Well, this is a really fascinating one for me because it's one that like every now and then I've seen a larch and I've been like, well, that's definitely a larch. I can tell that's a larch. Man, that's it's kind of a funny looking larch. Like it just looks off. And this, of course, I mean, obviously it's Pseudolarix, which means false larix, false larch. And it's because this tree does, in fact, look a lot like a larch.
Yeah.
It grows with that single stem like what you'd expect for a larch. Then it has this normal canopy like any other conifer where the branches come out and has this initially X-current growth form with that single stem, the triangle on a stick idea.
That's X-current.
Yes, that is X-current. And then D-current is when it goes outwards.
Oh, boy. I don't know if I'll ever...
broadleaf tree.
But see, it going outwards looks like an X, no?
Really? Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. I see what you're talking about.
Oh, God.
Honestly, I don't know a good way to like express that. So that's the way it grows. So it has that triangle on the stick, X-current growth form. And then, honestly, just to throw everything off, as the tree gets older, it develops more of a decurrent form, like kind of on top. So imagine like it grows with a single stem for, a pretty decent amount of time. And then it slows down that central stem growth. And then the branches kind of arch upwards and start to grow kind of at the same rate as the main stem. So it kind of gets this rounded-ish top with these branches that come out. So it looks like almost a multi-stemmed decurrent tree on top of a X-current podium.
Wow, wacky.
Yeah, it's really kind of a beautiful, beautiful tree as it gets like really old, but oftentimes it becomes even more irregular, like having that perfect kind of like wow factor. I just don't think it's super common ultimately.
Okay, and that's only in older trees, you said?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, interesting.
And those older trees, they can grow to be 130 feet tall, which I think is just incredible.
Wow. Big tree.
Big trees, but it also gets kind of unproportionally large at the base, so like 5 feet in diameter. But I have read that sometimes they get double that. So imagine 100 feet tall, but the diameter at the base, or like, near the base, is like 10 feet. That means that theoretically, it's almost like a perfect, I don't know, there's some triangle thing that we could make math about.
Sure.
Where it's like 100 feet tall, but 10 feet wide,
Yeah. Like a like it needs maybe like a bigger base or something.
Yeah, or like, 2 times the height for the 1 foot in diameter. I don't know.
2x times, oh, shit.
My God. Look at him. I see numbers swirling around me right now.
They're all like upside down and don't make any sense because I don't know what I'm doing.
Wait a second. The other thing about this is it has very, very larchy bark. So when you're looking at it, the form of it looks kind of like a larch. The bark looks a lot like a larch. It's gray brown. It's rough. It's a little flaky. It becomes furrowed with age. They look kind of like a medium between almost a hemlock and a Douglas fir. So like kind of gets rough, but it doesn't get like insanely deeply furrowed and rough and things like that.
Can I say one more important thing?
Oh, of course.
Larchy bark and the Trunky bunch.
Now that is great. What's up? I'm Larchy Barch. Larchy Bark. Oh, it's hard to say.
All right.
Can that be our band name? Can we make that a band?
And the Trunky
Nice.
and the Trunky bunch.
So let's see. So the next thing it really like says this is a larch. It's the leaves and the twigs
For sure.
So the big thing that really like puts larches on their own scale in terms of like texture and form, kind of like what they look like, is that they have extremely dimorphic growth. Do you remember what dimorphic means?
Oh, dimorphic. 2 types, like 2 forms.
Yes, that's literally it. Good job. 2 forms. That's perfect.
But I don't know that in this context, I can't remember what that means exactly.
Yes. So in this context, what that means is that the branches grow in 2 different forms or 2 different styles. So you have one branch that they call the primary shoot, and that's the one that is growing kind of outwards from the bark or from a new bud. And that's the one that kind of elongates and sets needles on it and sets buds. That normal kind of first one, the shoot that's coming out. So because it's in the pine family, we know that all of those are spirally arranged down that main stem, that main initial shoot. And each place where there's a needle, they also set a bud, because we know that's what a leaf is. A leaf comes from or is just below a bud. So from those buds, the next year, they will grow very short shoots. They grow like not even a millimeter a year.
Whoa.
But they also still set the spiral pattern of needles. But they're so closely put together because the growth is so small that they look, for all intents and purposes, like they're either whorled, or the term that I've read a bunch, which is fabulous, is they are in a fascicle, where they're all connected right at the base, so tightly put together that they're just one big thing in a fascicle.
Oh,
and
cool.
I was like, no way. That is not technically a fascicle. But then I'm like, well, maybe technically it is. And then that got me going off looking like, well, okay, does that mean that each fascicle on a pine tree that, has the 2, 3, or 5 needles, are each of those, in fact, teeny tiny shoots? And I think technically they are. The world's teeny tiniest shoots that only produce 3, 2, or 5 needles, which potentially are, in fact, just one single needle that's split up.
Do these grow, if we do assume, or what is that, operate under the assumption that these are fascicles?
Yes, I'm listening, sir.
Do they have a set number of needles that come out?
It's just one, but I guess no. If we're operating under that assumption, I don't believe so. Although I have seen 10 to 30. So that second form of that little tiny shoot, that is the second form that produces the technical term dimorphic. One is that long shoot, and the second one is that really short shoot that grows very small.
While we're on needles, Casey,
yeah, please.
Can we talk about the fall color of these
needles?
Oh
God, of course. Yeah, I mean that's like the thing, right?
Oh, that's what the name means. That's where the names come from.
Exactly. It's called golden. Golden.
That's right. It sure is. Oh my God.
It's gorgeous. Like these needles. So when in the early spring, the summertime, they're like a blue-green color. So they look actually very similar to a true cedar. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But they are this like greenish color. They spiral around and they kind of look exactly like what you'd expect a larch to look like. But as you noted, in the fall time, they're just like pow bang.
Yeah.
Like this like deep yellow orangish color that just like stuns. Like it's really beautiful.
It's almost like neon orange. It's so bright.
Yeah. That's a perfect description. It is. It's bright and like it's bright, and because it has this weird texture, it's almost like it's bright and like you want to look at it, but you can't quite focus on it because the texture's too like fine, you know?
Totally, yeah. I was just thinking it's very feathery. Like
yes.
It kind of just looks like almost out of focus just looking at it.
Exactly, yeah. And I just think it's so effective. I just think it looks so nice.
It's gorgeous.
And so that's like the big thing that like really takes this tree and makes people think, there it is. There's that beautiful larch tree, because it also loses its leaves just like every other larch, because that's what larches do. This is it. This is why we did it. Everyone is going to go outside. They're going to look at larches and they're going to say, hey, that's a beautiful larch. And now I'm going to test your skills and say, are you sure? Because often it is a golden-larch. I shouldn't say often. It's rare. I have seen one of these in the entire Portland metro area.
Really?
Just one. It's at Clackamas Community College. It's the only one I know about.
How about that?
But I know there are others. I just have not gone out and actually found them.
Okay.
They grow more commonly in areas that are a little bit more humid and a little bit warmer. So you're more likely to find this species growing, I don't know, in down in the south or further where it is just a little bit less harsh than what you get out here in the Pacific Northwest in terms of our really cold or really hot climates, that kind of thing.
We're talking Mexico?
I bet you could find it in Mexico, a lot of places. But in the sort of semi-tropical areas that are kind of maybe on the coast or a little bit further south.
Okay.
But when I say south, I mean like Georgia. They probably grow like gangbusters.
I see. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Now, the thing that I think is interesting about this tree and what kind of sets it apart is not going to come as any surprise to anyone. It's the cones, Alex.
Casey, I'm so glad we're talking about the cones.
I'm so happy that you're so glad about this. This is, I want to rewrite the entire description of our podcast because I just don't think it's accurate anymore. You used to be a tree skeptic, and now you're into cones. I see it all the time. I see the glint in your eye whenever I bring it up.
It's true, Casey. All right, well, let's talk about the cone. It is very larch-like.
You think so? Are you sure you're looking at the right cone?
I am pretty sure, Casey. Is it not? Well, it looks like monkey puzzle foliage.
Yes. Okay, we're looking at the same thing then. Thank God.
I guess it doesn't really look like a larch. But if I'm reaching, I can be like, yeah, that's a larchish cone, which is
okay. Yeah, sure.
It's pseudolarch, right?
It is. Yeah, exactly. You're like, well, it's kind of larch-like. Yes, I think when you described it as monkey puzzle foliage, that is precisely what I thought, to a T. So this is what I think is most fascinating because we know that this is in the pine family. And when they were doing their kind of intense looking, they said, well, this is like, It's not exactly like a larch. It does everything that a larch does, except the cones are nothing like it. And that's how we always tell you what's closely related and what is not closely related.
I see.
So it's about 2 to 3 inches tall, 5 to 7.5 centimeters, and it's about 2 inches in diameter, about 5 centimeters. They're solitary, but they are usually all over the branches that they grow on. And they also grow on those little tiny short shoots, the same thing that produces the needle little sprays, those little umbrellas.
Yeah, that's good economy, huh?
It is, right? And they grow upright, and they usually end up growing every other year. So you'll see one big cone year, then the next year it takes a break, and then year 2, it will pop back up again. Or I guess that would be year 3. So years 1 and 3, then 5, then 7, so on. Now the thing is, the cone will break apart, but it doesn't break apart the way true cedars in cedrus and true firs in abies break apart.
Now I'm interested.
They break apart with a single axis that remains intact. So each cone scale falls off of the axis. So with the Golden-Larch, it's actually that rachis, that central axis, that ends up breaking apart.
Oh.
So this is the way I would describe it. Where if you have a ladder, and that ladder is one of these cones. If this is an abies ladder, then each one of the rungs in between the two upright bits on that ladder, each one of those rungs would fall apart. They would fall off. So you would just have these two things with nothing in the middle, right?
Okay.
Whereas for this other cone, for the cone of the Golden-Larch, it's not that those middle rungs fall apart. It's that the individual bits that are connecting that fall apart. So you almost have a ladder that looks like many different letters H stacked on top of each other. But then each H falls apart. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that the world's worst metaphor?
No. It's not the best, but it's not the worst.
Damn it. All right. Well, that's the one I thought of because I was like, okay, well, this thing could fall apart in 2 different ways. All right.
That's okay. So
Well,
can I repeat back what I'm getting and you can tell me if I'm right?
Yes, you can even paraphrase if you so choose.
I might have to. So the axis in this cone is the thing that falls apart, not the scales off the axis itself.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, it rots from the inside.
It does, yes. Wow. Why didn't I just fucking say that?
Casey.
Sometimes.
That's why I'm here.
It is why you're here. That's exactly why you're here. But yes, that's exactly it. So it actually breaks apart. So that central axis snaps with a scale on that section of the axis. And then each section of the axis kind of breaks apart, and then the scales kind of fall away. So this is kind of the interesting thing about this tree, is that when they were trying to put it together and trying to figure out, like, okay, where does this thing live on the giant hierarchy of life? We know it's in the pine family because it has all these spiral-shaped things and all these, the pollen actually looks very similar. But it is distinctly different, but it shares traits with multiple different species. So it's like, well, this does the same thing as abies and cedrus, but also the same thing as larix, but it looks more like larix and cedrus, and it looks almost nothing like abies, but it still has kind of all these same things here. So it kind of created this really interesting quandary. And so because of that, they named it like 30 different things. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different synonyms for this. And everyone's like, okay, this is just its own thing. So today, it is in its own monotypic genus.
Wow. They really did not know what to do with it.
No, exactly. And so it's very closely related to, like I said, the firs, the hemlocks, the cedars, and these other 2 unknown genres, which are Keteleria and Nothosuga.
That's pretty good. It kind of makes me respect the tree a little more. Maybe I'll talk about that in my review.
I think so, yeah. I want to hear more about that. I like this idea of like it being monotypic. You're like, okay, yeah, respect.
Yeah, it is very cool, you know.
So evolutionarily speaking, it's a really interesting thing. Now, it has pollen that is, and who cares what this means, but it's 2-saccate, which is 2-saccate, S7E40, which I believe just simply means it's got 2 sacs, something like that. And that pollen resembles most closely Pinus and Abies, but it's nowhere near Larix, like true larches.
Okay.
And the seed cones mostly resemble those of the genus Conifer more than anything else. So it's almost like a Frankenstein tree. And I know we're past Halloween, so I don't want anyone to be like, well, are you guys like taking this spooky theme through? No. The answer is no.
Well, I was going to correct you and say, Casey, it's more of a Frankenstein's monsters tree.
True. Thank you. I appreciate it. I am a fan of precision. But that's the thing. So like evolutionarily, it does the thing that the larch does, but in a botanical sense, it's nothing like a larch. It also does the same thing that cedars and true firs do, but nothing like a true fir, but it's really actually kind of similar in terms of what its foliage does and that dimorphic growth as a true cedar. And its seed cone looks like Conifer, yet its pollen looks more like true firs and pines. It just drives you crazy.
Casey,
you have no idea. Like it's just like this amalgamation of all these other different things. It's like, okay, well, we got all this other shit left over from building those trees. Let's just smash all this together, and there you go. You got another tree.
Casey threw up his hands in despair.
What am I going to do?
Yeah. So I mean, like, it's why Larix? You know.
Why Pseudolarix?
Like why Larix specifically? Like why not pseudo Abies?
Yes. I think that is because it looks mostly from just a complete aesthetic point of view like a larch.
Okay.
If you look at it without doing any investigation, you'd say that's a larch. But then as soon as you look a little bit closer, you would find all these intricate tiny little details that are just a little bit off.
Okay. I've got like my my spidey senses are tingling, Casey.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, is this an ancient tree?
It's a great question.
Wow.
It's a great question, Alex. It is an ancient tree.
There you go.
It's a super ancient tree. It's a super ancient tree, and I'm glad you brought that up because this tree dates to like 45 million years ago.
Wow.
That's the middle of the Eocene
Yes,
period.
yes.
I love that you're like, oh yeah, totally, the middle of the Eocene. I was just thinking about that the other day.
I had my eyes on that word. I was on the Wikipedia page. That would be cool if I could do that.
Yeah, that would be great. I can't do that. That would be amazing. Well, yeah. So they found a lot of the fossils from this tree, way up in like the very high Arctic in northern Canada. But what's curious is they found it with fossils of a bunch of other species that also do a very similar thing, namely Metasequoia glyptostroboides, which is the Don redwood, you of course recall.
Yes, yes.
And the another species that we haven't quite talked about, but I took a note to talk about while doing this episode, which is called the Chinese swamp cypress, or Glyptostrobus.
Wow.
Now, I want you to put something together here. It is Glyptostrobus pensilius and Metasequoia glyptostroboides. This is Metasequoia essentially has the Glyptostrobus-like leaves. So these are two species very closely related.
Funny.
And they were both growing up in swamps, in like warm, humid swamps, way up in the Arctic Circle 45 million years ago.
Wow.
And they were growing with the Pseudolarix, with our Golden-Larch. This is interesting because as we talked about with our Metasequoia episode, it is very likely that that tree only became deciduous because it was growing way up in the Arctic Circle where there was no light for half the year, so it would drop its leaves.
Yeah.
So with these other two species that are also deciduous conifers growing in that same area, it's likely that they also are deciduous because of the same thing. At least this is what I think. Wow. I have not read something, but it seems like that would make perfect sense, don't you think?
You haven't read something?
I have not read something that says this.
Anything?
I have read nothing.
Oh, okay.
Nothing, period. I've actually never read anything. I only guess.
Oh, yeah.
This whole show is just me guessing.
You always have a book in your hands because you're very self-conscious and you don't want people to know.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah. So I'm holding right now mushrooms of Cascadia while I talk about something. So people are like, well, he looks pretty smart.
At least you think that's what it's called.
Exactly. I haven't read it. Oh man.
That's very interesting. Okay, so these are
Yeah.
sort of like three brothers from other mothers who all are just like out of place in time and just doing their
exactly.
thing. That's amazing.
Now, here's something. I love that you brought that up, out of place and time, because these were growing up in that very high Arctic, and they were found in what essentially were like swamp forests. And you can still find the Dawn redwood and the Chinese swamp cypress growing in these same kind of swampy forest areas in Sichuan in China, which is the same exact place you find our golden larch.
That's right.
In a similar location, but not exactly.
Okay.
Then they also found fossils of other species of different trees and plants, specifically Picea, the spruces, the pines, Betulus, which is the birches, Alnus, which are alders, Chamaecyparis, which are these other false cedars, Caria, which are hickories, and Suga are hemlocks. All of those were found in these kind of fossil swamp forests. Imagine like having a bunch of needles fall into a swamp and then slowly kind of settle down to the bottom.
Sure.
And then have that happen over millions of years, over time, turn to kind of mudstone, shale. And then you can go kind of knock into those and break apart these rocks and find these fossils that are in between, these kind of pressed fossils. They found all of this. So they know all of these things were growing together. And then we move on from then, 45 million years ago, to today, and we still find that same like group of species growing in this one particular curious area called Sichuan province in China.
Wow.
So it's almost like if you go to that area, you are seeing two things. One, what it used to look like up in northern Canada 50 million years ago when it was this incredibly warm, humid, swampy area rather than what it is today, which is a desolate wasteland tundra of cold and oxen,
Yeah.
musk oxen,
Snow oxen.
snow oxen. They're up there.
Or
Sometimes it's an oxen. Sometimes it's just a pile of snow. Be careful.
We can also call them snoxen. Go ahead.
We can. That's their preferred term, snoxen. But that is like, that will tell you. So you can see all these same trees that they found these fossils up over here, way down over here.
Yeah.
So you can say, okay, I bet you that this is what it used to look like, because now these trees are only growing in this tiny place in this world. We don't find any of these other species, even comparable other species in the same genus, anywhere else on Earth. They're all monotypic and they all grow right there. Not, the spruces and all these other things, but
Sure.
those three that we talked about, as well as some of those other weird conifers like the Nothosuga, which is a false hemlock. Well, so that's kind of the weird thing, don't you think? Like, this tree is, it's just growing in this place in Sichuan province. Like, I just am kind of stunned that we even have something that we can put those two things together, where we can say this tree is growing here, and we saw it growing up there with the same species. So conceivably, they all just slowly migrated around the world until they found this spot that is a refugia, which is exactly their perfect habitat. So aside from other like climate things that we can figure out from other means, imagine like taking a boat and in the old colonial times trying to find that Northwest Passage. You know what I'm talking about? And imagine if you did it like 50 million years ago, it would be like a tropical wonderland a la Central America or like Sichuan, China. You could just take your boat right through and have like spider monkeys jumping around through these trees.
Yeah, careful of them Arctic crocodiles.
There's Arctic crocodiles. They are very hot.
They're so hot.
All right. Now, there's one other interesting thing that I wanted to kind of take this around. So we've talked about the fact this is botanically a really curious species. It doesn't really have any other analogous species. It's monotypic. It grows in a very interesting way. And one thing I should note, they found fossils, two different types. And so they can say that there are at least two different fossil species, one that is extinct and the other is indistinguishable from the modern day species, which means, Alex, one of two things. A, they have not found anything that significantly says this is a different species, because a lack of evidence, what is that saying? Essentially, If you don't see the evidence, that doesn't mean it's not there. It just means you have not been able to see it.
Sure.
And it happens with fossils all the time.
Okay.
Where you can see a fossil that looks exactly like something that you see today, but you cannot 100% say that it is the same thing as what we have today because you are not seeing the whole thing. Like it might grow as a shrub only, or there might be some other part that we don't know about that looks completely different that we just don't know comes from, the same tree.
Okay.
Anyway, we know that there is at least one other species, and that's like a dubious thing. It's about the length of a bract. There's a long bract and a little bract.
Okay.
And that's the big change. So we know there's two species.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
The other one, it's indistinguishable. So we're like, this actually just could be the same species as we have today. So botanically, it's almost the same exact species from 45 million years ago as it is today.
Wow.
Next thing, it's growing in this interesting area. We covered that. It grows in this curious place with these curious other trees. When they were looking at this tree, they being Western science and any new botanist kind of in the last couple hundred years, when they go to where these trees are growing in the forests, they say, hey, okay, so where do these trees grow? Where are they native to? Like what's their natural kind of range and habitat type? And you can give some good answers, but interestingly, this area has been lived in and managed in some regard for thousands of years. This is kind of southeastern China, and there has been a huge amount of deforestation, or at least logging, so there might still be a forest there. It was cut at some point. And where they didn't cut was usually around a Buddhist temple. And then they would leave the forest around that temple.
Sure.
But everywhere else, they would cut down the trees and either let them grow back naturally, or they would plant some trees that they wanted over there that may have not actually technically been there natively. Which again, really starts to draw, it doesn't draw the line, it more just makes that line fuzzy of what is native versus non-native, If we are part of the environment and the world, whatever we do is, in the long run, natural. We are a part of the natural system no matter what. So, we can't actually tell you if this species natively grows in certain areas because for at least 1,000 years or more, they have been planted because people would take and plant the nice trees that they wanted in their forests around in their forests. So imagine we were like, man, I really just wish that metasequoia grew in the forests of Oregon. So over time, thousands of years, we just plant them over here. So you're walking around the forest and you see like a bunch all over the place and you're like, yeah, well, these must be native here. They're all growing here.
I see.
But it's not necessarily the case in Southeast China. It could be, in fact, that these are trees that have been planted and started to grow themselves in, but they were not ever technically growing there in and of their own volition, and that's it.
Interesting.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what do you think, Alex? What do you think about that idea of like, if humans are a part of their environment and we plant trees into a native forest, for all intents and purposes, it looks like a native forest. Is it a native forest or is it an altered unnative forest?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm kind of the first mind where, like, I don't know, everything is so fluid anyway. And then I guess my big question is, like, what is the point of saying this is native or non-native? Like, where does that get us? And it's
a good question.
I'm like, and okay, and then, or like, okay, and so.
Was that a reference to the hit movie Dude, Where's My Car?
It was not. I've never seen that, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, okay, this is a non-native forest. Now what?
Yeah. So what?
Yeah. Where does that get us?
Great.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, Alex. That's, I think, a really good point. I think that you can add a label onto something just to label it. But it does something that I've actually been reading or listening to a lot about. I don't know if I've been choosing it or if it's just been kind of manifesting its way into my life. But the idea that like humans and nature are separate, or kind of nature and animals, like all these different things are separate. I think that science these days is trying to, I don't know, reckon with the idea that we can't just split everything into its own categories and call it good. There's always going to be some fluidity, and there's always going to be some interrelationships that you have to kind of account for.
Sure.
So I think in this case it's a perfect example of like it's a dumb label to put on something. Maybe it works well in New Zealand, where you have a native forest that has flora of this kind, and then you have a non-native forest that is some of that flora underneath a canopy of radiata pine. And that's it. Like, that's pretty simple, right? You can tell the difference between a non-native forest and a native forest. But here, the line is so fuzzy and so unreal, and that would be saying, well, okay, if the humans just move things just like any other animal moves a plant, what's the difference?
Yeah. I mean, I think I am of that mind. We're like, well, I don't know, Case. I think we are like, we have like manufactured separation. You know, like I like the idea that we're not different from any other animal. We are a part of nature, but we kind of are at this point, like separated, right? Like we have created literal and metaphorical walls between ourselves and nature. Yeah. What we call nature, you know, even though we are just like another part of nature.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. It's a duality, right? Like we're living actively in two different realities where we are a part of nature. That is a fact. We cannot escape it unless we literally get off the planet. Mm-hmm. Yet at the same time, we also clearly are different than every other species at the minimum because of scale. Like you can say ants and termites and all sorts of different organisms have a huge effect. And like, you know, people will talk about plants having created the earth and all the soil and all the oxygen and how biota, little tiny microorganisms created all the other stuff and like had this huge change or this huge effect with change on the planet over billions of years, millions of years. But in a matter of 45,000 years, blink of an eye, humans have like completely changed. In fact, not even 45,000, 10,000, 15,000. Mm-hmm. We've changed the face of the planet in such massive ways that nothing has come close to, at least certainly in that kind of period of time, unless it's a meteor, I guess, might be the only thing. So that's the only thing that's beating us now, you guys. Why are we stopping here?
Yeah, it's an exponential change, so it's only going to get like more absurd.
Yeah, but at the same time, we're a natural part of that system. So yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to kind of live in that duality and kind of understand. And it's a weird thing to like ask someone to make a label of it and say, believe this label, make it a believable label. Like, okay, well, this tree is native here, or it's not. It just seems arbitrary.
I mean, that's the whole name of the I was going to say game, but podcast, right?
It's true. Yeah. So we should actually be steering into it. That's what I'm hearing.
There you go.
Like, actually, yeah, we're going to make an arbitrary line. You are a non-native species growing here, but then over here, you are a native one.
This is officially a theme month, everybody.
It is us labeling things as we see fit.
Yeah, but I mean, there's got to be a middle ground where it's like, can't we come up with a third thing? Or just like, I don't know. All that shit makes me so frustrated because I'm not one of these people that like hates labels, you know? But it doesn't allow, I don't know, we need some flexibility or something. I guess that's why things are constantly changing.
Yes, yeah, like language moves and like it evolves. But earlier you were saying that it was interesting that you are, like it doesn't solve anything, like it doesn't produce any like helpful, useful, I don't know, product at the end of it. Yeah. And I don't mean product as in physical thing, just a thing. Because I think that's a really good point where you could say, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, if this label helps, like we go to New Zealand and say, hey, there's a non-native forest, there's a native forest. It's good to have that label so we can kind of prioritize which one we would want to save or which one we want to like let do its thing and which one we want to alter to a different form. Mm-hmm. Whereas if the label isn't really that important and it doesn't create something, I think a middle ground, I don't know, is almost like accepting that there is almost a spectrum that we could find. And this brings me back to the native peoples of almost everywhere, but the really good, excellent, quintessential example is North America, where they were managers of the land at a vast scale and had been for tens of thousands of years, where they would put fires through and they would alter the land. And the land, though, and the trees and the species and the animals, everything around it was all kind of the land. They were all they were all working in this, this synced up kind of fashion. So that is like, is it unnatural that the native peoples of the Pacific Northwest lit fires and completely changed the landscape? Or was it natural because they are a natural part of the system? And then now at some point, Western society has kind of pulled themselves out of the system to some regard. We're no longer working with it. We're forcing it to go a certain way.
Which is going great, by the way.
That nuance. Yeah, hold on. Can we get our report card? All A's. All right.
Well, Casey, as is common on this show, I have no answers. And this is an impossible question. And now we must put this tree in a little box labeled with a number and give it a rating. And that has to happen after a break. We will be right back with the exciting conclusion of the Golden-Larch here on Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary. Casey.
Alex, I'm still here.
Oh, hey.
Hey, man.
I thought I was just talking to myself. I call myself Casey.
I do, every now and then. I actually knew you did.
As a tree.
I knew that.
Casey, it's time to review this tree. And here's how it works. We're going to give some final thoughts on the Golden-Larch and then give it a rating of 0 to 10 golden cones of honor, as our resident expert will begin with you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I have mixed feelings about this tree. And the only reason I have mixed feelings is because I have not been able to withhold the glory of it in my own hands. And I wanna. I really would just adore the ability to see one of these and see it in its full glory. I think there might be one at Hoyt Arboretum. I have not found it just by happenstance yet. And I also know that the one that I do know about is very small. It's not a big glorious tree, and I want to see a big glorious one right in front of me.
You got to get yourself to China, one thing man.
Exactly. I got to go to China, man. I got to go to so many different places. So I'm working on that. Just give me some time. I'm going to get there. But the thing that I really like about this tree is its intersectionality. It brings in all these different elements that tell you it's similar to tree A, tree B, tree C, tree D, tree F. It's just like all these other trees. In fact, as you noted, the cone itself looks like a monkey puzzle in a completely different family.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of fun. So it kind of is a tree that has pulled 10,000 different things together and said, hey, you know what? I live on the intersection of all these curious things that other trees are known for. I just kind of dig. I just kind of stole that. I thought your shoes are cool, so I bought shoes like it. But I thought your hat was cool, so I got your hat. And
even though they're from two completely different styles.
And the other kind of intersectionality that I found was the three main kind of points that I kind of found while researching this tree, which is the interesting botanical thing we just talked about, the interesting ecology in that it kind of is at this intersection of modern day and also what used to be literally 45 million years ago all over North America. This would have been a tree that we would have seen growing probably just north of where we're at. Way more common than what we see, today. Completely different forest type. Everything is different. I would love to see that, but I think it's an interesting intersectionality. And the final one is this intersectionality of are we native in this exact place or are we not? And where does that happen in terms of human adjustment of an ecosystem? So this tree, to me, aside from its gorgeous, beautiful fall color, is kind of like a tree that is at a crossroads of 1,000 different things that could be planted and represent almost anything. You could say it's a native tree, or you can say it's a non-native tree. You can call this, a larch, or you can call it one of any other kind of species of tree. So I think because of that, this is like the every tree in a positive way, not a red maple kind of every tree.
Oh, sure.
So I think I'm going to call this one a nice quality. I'm going to go 7.6.
Wow, nice.
I'm going to go 7.6 for this tree. Yeah, I just think this is a tree that has a lot of potential. I think it could be higher.
Okay.
Could be.
I agree with you, Casey. I like that. I like that you said it has potential, because I'm like, I don't know. Nobody, we haven't ever mentioned this tree before. I don't hear people talking about it. It's like very underground, a little too underground. Let's take it, put inject it into the system, and blow it up overnight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, exactly. We gotta put a little makeup on it. We gotta gussy it up a little bit and push it out in the front of the cameras.
Yep. Give it some veneers.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. We're gonna need to fix that.
But my overall thoughts on the Golden-Larch are skew positive. I mean, I'm not crazy about it, but I think it is an interesting tree. Visually, it does almost nothing for me. I like the color.
What?
But I look at it and I'm like, that's a tree. I like the color in the fall.
Okay.
I suppose that might be it.
Wow. Okay.
I feel very neutral about it in so many ways. But the part of me that feels, the thing I feel notably positive about is this sort of like trans experience of like, I'm gonna be a little bit like this. I'm gonna be a little bit like this. I'm gonna be a little bit like this. I'm gonna have these, like you said, wearing a top hat with Jordans,
Yeah.
And I really respect that. I love the idea that it's like, it was hard to categorize, so we just said, screw it. It gets its own category, its own genus. I love that about it. But as a tree, I think I'm just going to go like a nice clean 7.0.
Nice clean 7.0. That's way higher than I thought. I thought you were gearing up to be like 5. Wow,
I know.
This tree means nothing to me.
That's true. I was kind of gilding the lily a little bit there. But yeah, 7.0 feels good to me. It's not, that's high. That's not high. That's low-ish for me if I'm excited about a tree.
I suppose that's fair.
You know what I mean?
I think it's I think it's a pretty good one. I think it's a good rating.
Yeah, not bad.
Average 7.3.
Casey, that was our review of the Golden-Larch. We hope you enjoyed it, y'all. It's time for a very special, completely arbitrary AMA.
That's right. Oh, and before we go, there was an AMA about this very tree.
That's right, Casey. And so a little tag on the end of our TRL, Trees Requested Live. This was requested specifically by T on the Cone Club.
T.
Yeah.
I saw that one come through while you're looking at this other one. And I saw it come through. I was like, oh, that's perfect. We had already planned to do this tree. This is going to be great. And then it all worked out very well. And then it turns out the AMA was, can you do this tree?
Yes. The question was, please make an episode about this.
There you go. So the answer is yes.
Yes. And there you go. You just listened to it. Oh, you missed it. Go back and start again.
Oh, no. Listen to it 500 times.
Listen to the ads. This week's question, Casey, comes from Rachel. Rachel says...
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel. Why does it seem that trees with variegated leaves don't have pretty fall foliage? There's a tree in my neighborhood that has beautiful green leaves with white outlines in the summer, but in the fall, it just looks like drab and brown.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, variegated, Casey, I only know it by sight. I don't know what's actually happening, but it almost reminds me of like, what's that called? Where you have no melanin in your skin.
Oh, yes. You're thinking albinism.
Yes, albinism. Where maybe there's some, what's the other thing called? The chloroplast or whatever.
Yes.
Like some missing chloroplast here and there in a leaf. And it gives it this beautiful like white-green pattern.
Yeah.
So I guess, why is this tree drab and brown and not beautiful red and gold?
What's happening here is this tree that's variegated, or any plant that's variegated, essentially does exactly what you said. Certain sections of the leaves do not produce chlorophyll. There's still cells, they still exist. Cool. Yes, exactly. So there's no chlorophyll in that section of the leaf, so they appear white, or they appear more or less see-through or kind of mauve. Like they just don't have a significant color.
You'll see this a lot with house plants.
Exactly. Houseplants, they're super common. The box elder has a species like this. The true, European beech has one like this. And then, of course, the tree du jour that we're talking about in this question, I guess not the whole podcast, the Norway maple. And this is super common because people think it looks really beautiful. They're like, oh yeah, I want to get a variegated plant. But inevitably, it is a plant that is not producing as much energy as it normally would, or that would be required to like make it real strong and tough. So essentially, it's kind of like doesn't have as much green, which means it's not producing as much food, which means it is not growing as well as it could. But it also is more likely in terms of the leaf that it's just not producing any pigment at all. And chlorophyll is a pigment first and foremost, but so is carotenoids. So are carotenoids and these other different colors that you see that when we look out and we see a tree that's, this orange color, this yellow, or this purple, this red, those are all essentially producing more of these other pigments that do certain things. Maybe they are better at getting a certain kind of light that's at a lower intensity. So in the wintertime, the sun hits at a lower level, or at the in the fall time. So if you produce red pigment more than green, then you can actually get a little bit more energy from a lower bit of light, a less extreme kind of light that's hitting your leaves.
Wow.
But you also are saving the pigment that is most important, which is the green chlorophyll. So they essentially break down the chlorophyll, store all those different parts inside of the stems and the tissues of the tree, and then because they get rid of one color, the other color that's always been there is now the only thing that you see. So you kind of take off the top portion, or get rid of all the green that is on your clothes, and then underneath you're wearing another set of clothes, and those ones are red. So now everyone sees the red clothes because you just took off the green clothes. Kind of like that. So it's a little bit of a mixture of both. So with a leaf that doesn't produce any pigment, that is variegated, it doesn't have any pigments in it. So it just turns brown because the leaves and the tissues just slowly die, desiccate, and then drop off.
And that's the color of just like dead plants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's essentially just a dry piece of plant matter.
Yeah.
It tends to become a brown color.
I've been called that myself many times.
Yeah, Alex, he's in his desiccated leaf phase. So just give him a couple days. He'll be fine. So I'm 99% sure that's what's going on with variegated leaves, is that they turn brown because there are no pigments in there to actually create the beautiful colors that we're used to seeing. So effectively, it's a mutation that probably causes that tree to not grow as well, which is why they tend not to be the most biggest, bestest thriving plants, and they tend not to like full sun because they just get too hot and they don't absorb any of the light. They actually shoot it off away.
Interesting. Okay, it just hits them and bakes them.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow.
So I see those trees get burned more than any other tree.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow. That's interesting stuff, Case. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Rachel, for that great question. And
yeah, it's fabulous.
I feel like that was a pretty comprehensive answer. And I'm not saying that in a backhanded way, like you went on for too long. I'm being genuine.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Because I have also said that.
Because it's been said in both ways, just to be clear.
Hey, if you've got a question for us and want to support this lovely podcast, become a Treemium member today at arbitrarypod.supercast.com. You can join the Cone Club, or you can join a Tree Huggers. Pay a monthly or yearly support fee and get lots of great things in return, including ad-free listening. You get monthly cone stickers if you're in the Cone Club. You get bonus content. You get a merch store discount in either club. And best of all, you get to support science communication.
Yeah, baby. Cool.
Which is great.
The other thing you can do if you want to support us, which I highly encourage you to do in the next, let's say 2 months, is get on our online store, go over to the section that says March, and click on it.
Yeah.
Because there you can get some really cool t-shirts. You can also get some really cool hats. You can also get some really cool totes. You can also get some really cool stickers. But before we go too far, and I know everyone's about to turn off all their podcast stuff, don't do it yet. Hold on. we're going to be doing some cool sales before Christmas time, and I want you guys to get in on that.
That's true.
Because we're going to be doing, I think 25% off of at least 2 of our t-shirts, our Douglas Fir tee and our Tree Buds.
That's right.
But go do that. And if you are into these hats, we are about to be done with our pre-order. We only have 5 more days. So
That's right.
I guess, when you hear this, there's only going to be 2 more days left. The 10th is when it's done.
Gots to go buy a hat.
Yes, go buy a hat. And just absolutely, they look so cool. You're going to be so cool. Your friends are going to be cool. If you want to buy one for a friend for Christmas, that is highly recommended.
Yeah, baby. Love to hear it. Casey Clapp.
Alex Crowson, another great job. Thanks for your ruminations here.
Oh yeah. Thank you for presenting the evidence. It's like you're like Socrates and I'm Plato or whatever.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that sounds good. We gotta start coming up with some discourses.
I'm Plato, you're Socrates. Is that what I said? Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, either way.
Yeah.
You want to be Plato specifically?
Yeah, because I would spell my name like, the toy clay. I think that would be funny.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
Just
yeah,
for fun.
I like that.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Completely Arbortrary. We'll see you next week. Goodbye. Completely Arbortrary is produced by Alex Crowson and Casey Clapp. Our artwork is by Jillian Barthold, and our music is by Aves and the Mini Vandals. If you want to support this podcast and become a Treemium member, head over to arbitrarypod.supercast.com. Thanks for listening.